In just 67 seconds, 20 classified names were set to destroy the career of the most powerful law enforcement official in America. Thomas Massie did not expect total silence. Kash Patel did not anticipate a complete exposure. Cameras captured every trembling denial. Congress witnessed justice unfolding in real time. What did the congressman from Kentucky reveal from those FBI 302 forms that left the FBI Director pale before 127 million live viewers? On March 15, 2025, at 2:34 p.m., in room 2140, one of the Rayburn House building, the air was heavy with the weight of America's most protected conspiracy, finally exposed to the light of day. Kash Patel entered, like a strategist already knowing his next 3 moves. A navy blue suit tailored to project federal authority. An FBI badge reflecting the lights that would soon illuminate his downfall. In his right hand, he carried a leather briefcase containing prepared statements that would prove catastrophically inadequate against what Congressman Thomas Massie had uncovered. Behind him followed 6 legal specialists from the FBI and 4 congressional liaisons. Their faces, masks of professionalism, concealed a nervousness that would soon be unveiled. Patel had been briefed on all possible lines of questioning, except for the nuclear option that Massie was about to deploy. On the other side of the mahogany battlefield stood Congressman Thomas Massie, resembling a constitutional scholar who had spent sleepless nights deciphering the most explosive government documents in modern history. His wire-rimmed glasses reflected the harsh lights of a committee as he adjusted a thick folder marked classified, eyes only, containing the FBI 302 forms. The 52-year-old Republican from Kentucky had built his reputation on constitutional principles and government accountability. Today, he was about to deliver the most devastating moment in FBI history before Congress, using only documented evidence and surgical questioning. The House Judiciary Committee chamber buzzed with electric tension. Investigative journalists from all major networks filled the available seats. At exactly 2:34 p.m., President Jim Jordan called the hearing to order with an unusual gravity. The committee will now receive testimony regarding the management procedures and investigative protocols of the FBI related to high-profile federal cases. His voice carried the procedural weight, but everyone understood this was about Jeffrey Epstein and the government officials who had protected him through the systematic suppression of evidence. Patel opened his prepared statement, voice firm and confident in a bureaucratic style that would soon prove catastrophically inappropriate. Congressman Massie, I appreciate the opportunity to address these unfounded conspiracy theories regarding the FBI's investigative procedures. The FBI, under my direction, maintains the highest standards of investigative integrity and evidence preservation. Massie let him finish, his fingers silently tapping on the classified file containing the evidence that would soon upend the FBI director's world. As Patel concluded with a confident nod, Massie leaned forward with the intensity of a prosecutor who had done his homework that others had tried to bury. Director Patel, Massie began, his voice carrying the measured precision of someone who had spent months analyzing classified documents. You mentioned the integrity of investigations and the preservation of evidence. Let's examine these claims through the documented procedures of the FBI rather than prepared talking points. He opened the file with deliberate ceremony, revealing documents that caused Patel's confident expression to falter for the first time. Director, are you familiar with the FBI 302 forms related to the investigation of Jeffrey Epstein? Patel's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The 302 forms were dangerous territory, witness interview reports containing the most sensitive information of any federal investigation. Congressman, I oversee numerous classified investigations involving complex evidence management protocols. The specific details of certain cases cannot be discussed in public session without compromising ongoing operations. Ongoing operations? Massie repeated, his voice rising with the precision of a prosecutor. Director Jeffrey Epstein died in federal custody over 5 years ago. What ongoing operations are you protecting? The question hung in the air like the smoke from a gunshot. Cameras zoomed in on Patel's face, capturing the micro-expressions revealing his growing discomfort. Senator, the Epstein case involved multiple jurisdictions and international components that still require federal oversight and the protection of classified methodologies, Patel replied, falling back on a bureaucratic defense. Massie smiled like a chess player who had anticipated this exact response. Protection of classified methodologies. That's interesting, Director, because I have here 47 pages of FBI 302 forms from the Epstein investigation that tell a very different story. He lifted the documents, ensuring that every camera captured the official seals and FBI classification markings. These are witness interview reports conducted between 2019 and 2023. Do you want to know what your agents documented in these interviews? Patel's hands began to tremble almost imperceptibly as he reached for his glass of water. Congressman, if these documents are authentic, they represent classified law enforcement materials that cannot be disclosed without proper declassification procedures. Oh, they have been properly declassified, Director, Massie replied with devastating calm. Declassified by the Congressional Oversight Authority when we discovered they were being systematically deleted by our office. The revelation that the documents had been declassified sent shockwaves through the chamber. Patel's legal team exchanged panicked glances, realizing that their main defense had just collapsed. Let me read from FBI Form 302 number 2019 EP 4471, dated September 15, 2019. Massie continued with surgical precision. This is an interview of victim number 7 conducted by Special Agent Jennifer Chin. The room fell completely silent. Even the journalists seemed to hold their breath as Massie prepared to read classified evidence aloud. Quote, the victim described regular parties at Epstein's residences involving about 20 high-profile individuals, including current federal officials, Supreme Court staff, and foreign dignitaries. The victim provided specific names, dates, and photographic evidence of these individuals participating in illegal activities with minors. The words hit the chamber like a nuclear explosion. Several commission members gasped in surprise. Journalists began typing frantically, processing the implications of what they were hearing. 20 high-profile individuals, Massie insisted, his voice piercing the stunned silence, including current federal officials. Your agents documented this testimony in September 2019. What did you do with this information? Patel remained silent for several seconds, his face going through visible emotional states as he realized the magnitude of what Massie had obtained. Congressman testimonies in cases like these often contain unsubstantiated allegations requiring extensive corroboration. Massie interrupted him with controlled anger. Director, let me read from FBI Form 302 number 2019 EP 4498. Dated October 3, 2019. This is the follow-up interview by Agent Chun with the same victim. He turned another page, his voice rising with moral authority. Quote, the victim provided digital photographs showing subject A identified as a current Supreme Court justice in compromising positions with a minor at Epstein's, New York. The photographs were verified by the FBI's Digital Forensics Unit as authentic and unaltered. The revelation of photographic evidence involving a Supreme Court justice sent another shockwave through the chamber. Photographic evidence, Director, Massie repeated slowly. Verified by your own forensic unit. What happened to those photographs? At 2:37 p.m., exactly 3 minutes after the start of Massie's interrogation, Patel experienced what observers would later describe as a complete professional collapse. His prepared responses were useless in the face of documented evidence demonstrating a systematic cover-up. Congressman, these allegations involve complex legal considerations requiring careful evaluation within the appropriate prosecutorial framework, Patel stammered, his usual confidence evaporating like steam. Complex legal considerations, Massie echoed with bitter precision. Director, let me simplify this for you. I will read the names. The 20 names your victims provided. The names your agents documented. The names you chose to bury instead of investigating. The threat of revealing the names sent panic through Patel and his legal team. If Massie disclosed the identities of the high-profile figures involved in the Epstein network, it would trigger the biggest political scandal in American history. Congressman, please, Patel desperately attempted. The public disclosure of unproven allegations could destroy the reputations of innocent people and compromise ongoing investigations. Innocent people. Massie's voice filled the room with justified anger. Your own agents documented photographic evidence. Your own forensic unit verified their authenticity. These are not allegations. These are documented federal crimes that you chose to ignore. He raised another document bearing more recent dates. Let me read from FBI Form 302 number 2023, P7821, dated just 6 months ago, Massie announced, holding a clear and organized file in front of him. This was an interview conducted by the Office of the Inspector General, indicating that the agency had reviewed its own internal procedures. At the mention of the document, Patel lost a notable part of his usual confidence. Such an internal investigation meant that an official decision from his management had been reevaluated. Massie continued calmly, quote, Agent Chen stated that Director Patel personally ordered the cessation of several essential interviews in November 2019. When Agent Chen asked the reason for this decision, Director Patel claimed that the testimonies collected were not deemed sufficiently reliable and that pursuing this direction risked compromising broader national security priorities. This statement implied that Patel had chosen to halt investigative efforts based on his personal assessment of the reliability of the testimonies. Massie, without raising his voice, immediately refocused the discussion. You deemed them not credible, didn't you? He asked in a precise tone. The objective was clear, to establish that Patel had willingly narrowed the scope of the investigation. Patel tried to regain control of the situation, his hands tightening slightly around his pen. Congressman, investigative decisions involve complex assessments regarding the quality of available information and the likelihood of achieving tangible results. Out of their complete operational context, these choices can give a misleading impression. Massie did not respond immediately. Instead, he opened a second file, placed it carefully in front of him, and then stated, Very well. In that case, let's examine this context together. FBI Form 302, number 2023, P7834, dated last month. Interview of the Office of the Inspector General with Deputy Director of the FBI, Sarah Martinez. At the mention of this document, a wave of tension swept through the room. It meant that the internal investigation had reached the highest levels of FBI management, where no innocent person ever finds themselves being questioned. Patel's face turned a deathly gray, an expression that even the cameras could not soften. Quote, Deputy Director Martinez testified that the ongoing suppression of evidence related to Epstein by Director Patel was not motivated by legal considerations, but by the fact that several of the identified individuals were personal allies, financial partners, and key political supporters who had facilitated his appointment as director. A collective shiver ran through the room. This was not about procedural errors, nor legal ambiguities. Not even a misinterpretation of the law. It was a conscious and calculated betrayal to protect those who had elevated him at the expense of child victims of exploitation. Massie did not raise his voice.
He did not need to.
Director Patel, this testimony shows that your decision to block the investigation was not based on national security, nor on the preservation of investigative processes, but on the preservation of power networks to which you owe your own career. Patel tried to speak, but no sound came out. His eyes darted like a man searching for an exit in a room without doors. Massie slowly closed the file, letting the gesture itself carry the full weight of the situation. Director Patel, in 67 seconds, I will read the 20 names identified by the victims, verified by your agents, authenticated by your experts, then deliberately suppressed by your management. Unless you explain, here and now, under oath, why you chose to protect criminals rather than children. No movement, no whisper. Just a man who understood that there was no ground left beneath his feet. Massie looked up. The American people deserve the truth. And today, they will hear it. The clock began its invisible countdown. The fall had just begun. What followed was one of the most intense moments ever broadcast live on American television. Massie fixed Patel with one last glance, then opened the folder containing the list of names. His voice remained calm, almost clinical, as if he were reading a medical report rather than an inventory of powerful individuals protected by institutions. Name number 1. The entire room froze. Each name spoken was not a rumor, it was a name tied to evidence, a file, a photographic dossier, or cross-examined testimonies. Senators,
CEOs,
a federal judge, an ambassador in office, 2 figures linked to major international foundations, then a name from the Supreme Court. The room erupted into whispers, then protests, then total agitation. Patel closed his eyes, as if each name uttered was a hammer on his professional coffin. Journalists stood up, some already dictating into their microphones, others typing at a frantic pace, trying to capture the moment without losing a drop. Never had an audience reached such a level of collective shock in real time. For those exact 67 seconds, all of America seemed to hold its breath. No editing.
no commentary.
Just the raw truth, delivered unfiltered. The live broadcast exploded on social media. National news alerts interrupted television programs. Massie simply concluded, "Let these facts be recorded in the public record." The gavel struck. The room erupted into pure chaos. Cameras flashed like storm lightning. The doors opened, and the outside world rushed in. The reaction was instantaneous and global. In less than 4 minutes, #Epstein20 became the top worldwide trend on Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, and even on international news platforms. Television channels interrupted their programming, some with palpable hesitation, others with an almost jubilant urgency. The faces of the presenters revealed a mix of disbelief, horror, and the conviction that they had just witnessed something whose consequences could ripple for decades. In Washington, the offices of those named were immediately besieged by demands for statements. Some locked their doors. Others took private flights out of the country. A few issued vague denial messages, but the reality of the evidence rendered any defense too late. Meanwhile, within the FBI, panic spread like wildfire in a fuel hangar. Mid-level executives began to back up emails. Field agents started exchanging encrypted messages. The Inspector General confirmed the opening of an emergency investigation against former Director Patel. At 6:47 p.m., just 4 hours after the hearing, Director Patel submitted his resignation, citing the need to protect the integrity of the Bureau. But it was too late for empty phrases. America was now seeing what had really happened. The head of the country's largest law enforcement agency had protected child sex exploitation criminals at the highest level, all to preserve his political network. In the streets, discussions were raw. In universities, students shared videos. In dining rooms, families remained silent, absorbing the darkness of what it meant. Yet, through the shock, something else also emerged, a feeling that perhaps, for the first time in a long time, the truth had broken through the surface. As night fell over Washington, the shockwaves showed no signs of fading. Hundreds of thousands of people spontaneously gathered in front of the Capitol, holding signs demanding transparency, public trials, and an end to the impunity of the elites. It was no longer a partisan issue. It was no longer Democrats versus Republicans. It was the people against the system. The media struggled to regain control of the narrative, some insisting on the need to proceed with caution, while others denounced a constitutional crisis. But the public was no longer listening. The documents existed. The testimonies were recorded. The evidence had been presented live. The names had been spoken. America would not return to the blindness of the past. Meanwhile, Massie remained stoic.
No triunfalismo.
No speeches celebrating a victory. He knew this moment was not the end. It was the beginning of a much larger war, the one aimed at purifying institutions built for justice, but corrupted by power. Citizens began to ask fundamental questions. Who else knew? For how long? How many investigations had been buried? And if the FBI covered this up, what else had it covered? Trust in institutions already fragile, now hung by a thread. But, paradoxically, another feeling began to emerge, the idea that perhaps at last the truth could prevail. People began to say something they hadn't said in a long time. Keep going. Because they now knew that while corruption had deep roots, the truth now had a voice, evidence, a written record, and a precedent. And America had just seen that no conspiracy is too great to be exposed as long as someone has the courage to bring it to light before the whole world. And the question was no longer, why did no one say anything? But rather, who will be the next to speak?